A Science of Change, podcasting by Gilmore Crosby, social scientist, author, and organization development professional since 1984. Greetings, listeners. Today we have special guest host Chris Crosby interviewing our father, our 97-year-old father, Robert P. Crosby. Listen carefully and you'll occasionally hear Patricia, our beloved stepmother, who worked with Dad for ages and lives with him now. Enjoy.
Robert Crosby, my father. This is Chris Crosby, president of the Restart of Leos. And Dad, I wanted to talk to you about your, I think, I say top 5, but your top several community projects that you did in Spokane, Washington while you were there. Can you name them?
Well, let's do it together.
Okay.
Because that'll tell me what you're interested in, and I've forgotten some.
There's the HUD project.
Oh, that was an amazing project.
There's the juvenile courts.
Yeah, juvenile court.
I know more, but not fully, about the park project. And then you often talk about 5 Mile Prairie. Is it 5?
Mm-hmm. I think I have the 5 mile number right, but there is a definitive place out there that just grew sort of like it grew out of the earth and went up high, and people built farms there, and
right. Somewhere like up where Mead is, I think. Mead.
Yeah, water rights issues were really big.
Yeah. And so that's 4. Is there more that matter to you?
I just want to name some of them we won't discuss, but certainly my work at Eastern was fantastic. It really was. It was wonderful with schizophrenic patients. And then I did work with the United Methodist community. I was working for the district superintendent. And then I did community work. We didn't mention starting the crisis clinic, which I think it's mentioned in the article that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But it's not known. I mean, even at the crisis clinic, that I started that with my assistant, Father Suver. Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure there were several more, because I was having both the county and the city ask me to help them on this or that thing across these years, because the work was very successful. I had a simple formula, and it worked because it works.
What was the simple formula?
Simple formula, you got to make sure that whoever authorizes the work is really going to support it. That is, if somebody says to me, will you help me find out what this particular group thinks here, like on the HUD project, what they want, how they want to spend the HUD money that's being allocated to their district, then what I need to know is that whoever's going to get those recommendations from those citizens is going to listen very carefully, and they're going to hold themselves accountable to respond to that, and that they take that seriously. It's not just asking citizens for ideas and then saying, well, thanks, bye. That's the first fundamental. Well, that's both points. The second point, though, would be enhanced by then there's a follow-through session where that body, in the case of the HUD project, it was the city council. They would have a meeting, a public meeting, and talk about how they were responding to the recommendations. And then I announced to the citizens that if they weren't happy with that I would be available to help them organize to get something done about the conflict between what they wanted and what the city council was going to do, said they were going to do. Now, that was holding the city council accountable. We had dates for those meetings. And, it was highly successful. The city council took it really seriously.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to many projects in organizations, even not citizen participation, but certainly including citizen. People will ask the consultant to come in, talk to citizens. Citizens will come up with ideas. The people who are the authorities say thank you, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, that doesn't work, and I won't. That's immoral from my standpoint to take a contract where I don't know that the authorities are going to hold themselves responsible to be responsible.
And what was the third thing?
I don't know.
Okay. So those two are the main things.
Yeah, the follow through.
That they would take it seriously, that there would be follow-up meeting to talk about what they're going to do, that you somehow had to make the judgment that they were taking it seriously. Fair?
Oh, you didn't have to make a judgment. Oh, first of all, the second thing was involving the citizens. But no, you didn't have to make a judgment. Either this governing body heard those recommendations, come up with responsibilities. So that is like, say the word.
By wins, she said by wins.
Yeah. Oh yeah, by wins, that they will do what? And if it's not 80-90% of the time what the citizens recommended, then we have trouble in River City. And I was prepared to help them organize to deal with that trouble,
but
rather than just walk away.
The city council knew, or the governing body knew, that you were going to help them organize if they didn't do anything.
That always has to be true.
I understand, but in this case, somehow you made that clear to them.
It was made very clear. I picked something out of the HUD project, which Bob Stilger and Susan Bernick really contracted for, and they hired me to help with the citizen meetings. Bob worked with the top city people. He was very good at that. And Susan walked the streets and talked to citizens. Mm-hmm. And I ran all the meetings. But we were all on the same page. We weren't doing this just to play games with the citizens.
I understand that. When I said you have to make a judgment, how did you determine before you started working for the citizens that the authorities were on board with this seriously? They took it seriously.
I said we need to have a date for a follow-through meeting. And if they weren't in favor of that or anything, then I knew they weren't taking it seriously.
So basically, you just ask for what you want. And if they sort of said, no, well, that doesn't matter to us, then you would have said no.
Absolutely. To me, I was hired by, in this case, it was the city. Well, Bob and Susan were hired by the city. Mm-hmm. We were hired by the city. Mm-hmm. But we weren't hired by the city against the citizens.
Right.
We were hired by the city to enable the citizens to be influential.
And that's great. And so, but when you say you would help them organize, did you have examples, or do you have times when you had to help the citizens organize against the top leaders?
No. Who wants that?
Well, okay, but did you know what you were going to do if you had to?
Well, sure. Well, we had dates already set. I would tell people, yeah, that may happen, what you're afraid of.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But if so, we're going to meet on the following day, and we're going to organize to do next steps.
Okay.
And even though I wouldn't be under contract for that, I will do that gratis.
Okay. So tell me about the HUD project then. What are the keys to that project?
I was pretty much talking about the HUD project just now.
Just now? Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it about, the HUD project?
Well, the federal government, the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, made available money across the nation for neighborhoods to improve their neighborhood. And like for instance, a district in Spokane might have been allocated $500,000 to do whatever they wanted to do to improve their neighborhood. So it was our job, Bob's, to work the city people, keep them informed and clear about their responsibility as we saw it, as we took the contract. Susan worked the streets and would give me information about what citizens were saying. And then I worked at large meetings. We would have 300 people at a meeting. It was huge. And let's say I'm meeting with a certain district of the city, and they have $500,000 that they can use. And incidentally, I'm very fuzzy. This was what, 50, 60, how many years ago? Maybe it wasn't 500,000, but it was a lot of money.
There was money allocated, and you were helping them organize to how they were going to use it.
How they wanted to use their money.
Yeah.
So then I'd get the citizens together. Here they would be, let's say several hundred in a room. And that's where I got into some of the wonderful conversations that were a very vociferous citizen would grab the mic, which I had set up in the middle of the room, and say things conflictual. Do you want me to go on with it at this point of this, or do you want me to?
Well, you can, folks. That's in Memoirs of a Change Agent. All those statements are in Memoirs of a Change Agent, and
That's
your
right.
responses. But the key to responding, and let's see if I can get to one a little bit here. You know damn well that everything we're talking about here has already been decided in some dark room. That was the statement.
And get it that everybody in the room heard him say that.
Right. It wasn't just a quiet one-on-one with you. It was a group scenario.
Well, and it was before we began, sort of. But of course, once he said that, we began.
Well, I was trying to find your response. But, you write in here clearly the key is to look for the kernel of truth. In other words, I consider this to be, I'll call it self-differentiation, meaning that you stayed separate from the statements, looked for the kernel of truth, but didn't just get in a shouting match with this person.
Well, why don't I say what I said?
Sure, say what you said.
Well, I said, yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. For bringing that up. That's a fear a lot of people have here, I'm sure. Well, let me tell you what we have planned. After you make your recommendations, we will be having a follow-through meeting on a certain date. I'd give the date. And at that date, the council will be there and they'll tell you what they're doing with your recommendations, and you'll have a chance to respond to them. And if you're unhappy, then we will organize for how you handle your disagreement with them on what's to be done. So I thank you for bringing that up.
You honored what they said. You honored whatever the truth was in it, and then you used the opportunity to give the exact structure of the project.
That's right. I didn't just say, just trust them.
Yeah, you gave a lot of specifics there that people listening could say, okay, that's what's going to happen. And whether or not the person that was that angry could get over their anger that fast is a different story.
Well, the thing is, what could they say?
Yeah. That's right. You sort of took away their fight in a sense.
Yeah, this is a lot like the one in Italy. Is it out of place for me to mention it now with Perino?
No, you can say it.
Okay, well, so I'm at the Alcoa plant at Fusina, Italy. Patricia and I living there for 2 to 3 years in Venice and north of Venice, across the bridge, and then about 10, 20 miles from when you cross the bridge, there was a town called Fusina.
Mm-hmm.
Alcoa had purchased this from the Italian government, and it had been run by the government. It had been very authoritarian. A lot of distrust between the 3 unions that were there and between the Italian management. So we're having a first meeting, and I've been hired by Jeff Reynolds, who Alcoa hired to be there and run the plant when they purchased it. So we're having a first meeting with, well, the room was packed. I've lost track. I mean, God, it seems like 100 people were there, or maybe more. I don't know. But it was a packed house. And so Jeff made an opening statement, and then he said, I'm going to turn it over now to Bob Crosby, who's going to be our consultant on the project. And I stood up, said just a couple words, and then I saw this guy furiously raising his hand. That was wonderful. And I said, yes. And he said, I said, well, what's your name? My name's Pierino, which is an interesting name. It means little Peter. So it's what he was called as a little child. He still was being called that. But Pierino became, obviously, the spokesman for the union worker of the 3 unions that were there. And so he says, I'm going to try to say it the way I remember it here. Well, how do you expect us to trust these people after what they've done to us for the last several years? You can't just expect trust that quick. And I said, wow, Perino, thank you for that. A lot of people are thinking that here, I'll bet. How many are? Raise your hand if you've been wondering about the whole trust thing. And practically everybody raised their hand. And there were managers and a lot of union people in the room of the 3 unions, and which incidentally had their own troubles with each other. So I said, you nailed it, Pierino, thank you. Folks, just turn and talk to the person beside you about this for a minute. Respond to what Pierino just said, and they talked a little bit. I didn't give them much time. And then I said, now, what you just said, of course, you don't just start trusting, do you, folks? No, there's no way to just start trusting. Trust has to be built. So it's a process, and it's going to take time. And here's how we plan to work on it. And I told them a little about the plans. Then it just so happened that most consultants, what?
Well, so in a sense, each one of these moments, you're assuming the people that bring up these difficult things are speaking for more than themselves. There's a lot of people that are in agreement with what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And therefore, you're trying to, A, honor them, and B, help them see a path forward. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, that's right. That's right. First of all, I'm agreeing with them that you don't just automatically trust.
So the HUD project, then, there was all this money. It was allocated to the citizens. You worked with the citizens. They gave recommendations back to who?
Well, let's see. The HUD was city council.
And the city council did what the citizens recommended?
Oh, yeah, practically. I'm going to say 80, 90% of what they recommended were done. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the more prominent recommendations?
Well, there were things all the way from fixing the sewage in their area, taking sidewalks and people making sort of ramps. If you think of a sidewalk, it's straight down. But if you can shave it off and make a ramp out of it, so that people with wheelchairs and others can easily go up it. That was one. There were playgrounds for children in empty lots. Those are three good examples of things that people wanted.
Cool. And you won an award for the HUD project, is that right? Or who?
Oh, we won a HUD award from the national government. It's it's written up in my memoirs.
Who was the president at the time?
Oh, Nixon, I think, wasn't he? I don't know.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so tell me about the juvenile court project.
Well, I think there's another thing that needs to be said about the HUD project. I just lost it suddenly. Let me go back to it for a minute. But what was I saying at the end there?
The citizens would give recommendations, and the recommendations would be, and you said most of them got used, and then you won an award for it.
Yeah, you brought in the award. Oh, well, this was when I introduced one of the greatest places where I introduced CRID. Knowledge retrieval, implication, derivation.
I just want to context that. Knowledge retrieval, that basically means, how do I use information of how somebody else did something to do what I'm going to do without thinking it's too greatly imposed on me, so I just push it back. And I do want to say, knowledge sharing in the 1980s was probably different than knowledge sharing in 2025. Like there's not a lot of places to go and look at stuff, I think. But probably also people push back against using processes that others use. I don't know if they do or not, but keep going with it. What did you do for the knowledge retrieval work?
Well, knowledge retrieval fundamentally means that whatever we're doing here has been done somewhere in the world, or at least the same problem has been faced. And people attempted to do something and maybe failed. But there's knowledge to be learned from somebody else. But it must be learned in the spirit of, we're asking these people to retrieve knowledge, that is to recover knowledge, that is to share stories about projects. Mostly we tried to find successful projects where they dealt with exactly or very close to the same issue that you are facing. Now, folks, it's really important that you not think we're telling you should do this. That we don't want that, because let me tell you what happens. If we tell you we're showing you a successful practice in Kansas and you should do it, I guarantee there'll be a lot of people push back and say it doesn't work here. We don't need that. What we need is for you to listen to this knowledge, this practice that happened in Kansas. And for the first one, for instance, we've chosen a practice that happened and was successful. But that doesn't mean it would be successful here. You have your own world, your own situation. So what you'll do is you'll hear it, and then you'll be talking about, does this make sense for us? And in what way would it make sense on the task that we're facing here, let's say about sewage or whatever. And so then when people hear this knowledge that's retrieved, and often it's in the form of a video that we get from the people, in this case, I'm saying Kansas, but we get a video from them, and we often have a live person who will go on the phone and answer comments or questions about what worked, what were the problems they faced, etc. After that, then I'll have them talk about that. Now, in the knowledge retrieval, I also would use city staff. I would say, well, has anyone else faced sewage problems and dealt with it successfully in this city or county? Oh, yeah. Well, tell us about that. But again, don't tell anybody they should do it the way somebody else did it. Tell people what the practice was and let people then derive implications. See, that's the rest of CRID.
Right.
Knowledge, retrieval, implication, derivation. What tell people what they should.
The knowledge is not a thou shalt. The knowledge is specifics of what they did and what worked and didn't work.
Right. That's right. And so then the people in this district of the city that we're working with at that point take this knowledge and derive implications
And
for their project.
In the HUD project, you used it for what kind of areas?
Well, anything. I mean, because almost every problem that people face in one district, like how to build take an empty lot and build a playground for children, or how to fix the curb, like I mentioned, or the sewage or whatever. Almost any problem that faced in one part of the city had been faced by somebody somewhere else.
On the HUD project, how many knowledge retrievals did you do? Did you do 50, 80, 100?
Oh, I don't think that many, maybe a dozen or so. But
a dozen or so, but they were for pretty important things.
Well, they were for the things the citizens were working on.
Right.
And I thought of something else here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. The main thing was that the city staff, historically, of course, what else did they know? They worked across the city, and they would go to the other part of the city. And I said, you're not allowed to say that. That's like swearing at people. Don't do that. They'll respond.
Yeah.
Most of the time, or much of the time, they'll resist you. I want you to tell them, here's what they did there. It may not work for you, but then they'll listen. And they won't have their defenses up, getting ready to defend why it wouldn't work here.
So you of the HUD recommendations from the citizens, a great proportion of them were developed through knowledge retrieval, CRID, which is a process created by Ron Lippitt, correct?
Well, correct on the last thing. On the first thing, I don't know if a great number or a lot. I don't know.
20%, maybe 30%. Some of them.
Oh, I'd say that amount.
Okay. All right. But for some of the more difficult things that maybe you thought was difficult, people used knowledge retrieval or where they could.
It was also, the purpose of it was to teach city staff how to share resources rather than tell people what to do as if they were their boss.
Right.
The people knew that they weren't their boss. The people were the boss.
Okay. Is there anything else about HUD that you want me to say before we move to juvenile courts?
Well, the other thing about this one, we can jump quicker though to the 5 Mile Prairie. See, it was a water rights issue.
Yeah.
Farms had been built there, and again, it may have been 7 Mile Prairie or something, but I think it was 5. But anyway, it was farms. But when they started to sell them off for housing, then water became a real problem. And so you had sort of like the McCoy,
Hatfield and McCoy.
Yeah, Hatfield McCoy thing. You had the farmers that were selling off their land and wanted to make all the money they could for housing.
Right.
And the farmers who wanted to keep farming and needed the water.
Yeah.
Now, that one, I really used knowledge retrieval. I brought these people together. Again, it was a couple hundred people. It was a marvelous meeting. I totally loved that work. It was a county project, incidentally. And I had the county staff locate in the United States somewhere where they had faced the same issue. Well, they faced the same issue in a lot of places.
Right.
On water rights. And so we found one that it had some similarity to the 5 Mile Prairie. And so we showed the video. We had a person available by telephone to talk after I would have them derive implications and then talk back with intelligent questions rather than challenge them whether it would work here or not, which is a stupid question. Nobody knows that. The people have to decide if they think it's worth a try. And but I really used knowledge retrieval on that water rights thing like I've never used it anywhere, even though I used it a lot of great places, like one that I've forgotten in our conversation, because it wasn't city development, it was Pico Energy. With the engineering department, they weren't allowed to do anything, any new project, if they had not yet retrieved knowledge from somewhere in the world. And I mean to tell you, we would have knowledge retrieved from Brazil, from all over the world, because that knowledge exists. But again, knowledge retrieval, not telling people in Philadelphia what they had to do.
So, in the 5 Mile Prairie project, you again set it up with the authorities to take it seriously, worked with citizens to make recommendations and a follow-up date, and also set up the same process where you had people ready to organize if they didn't listen to their recommendations.
Yes.
And the 5 Mile Prairie then was also very successful, like they did most of the recommendations.
Well, I believe it was, yes. I mean, we didn't need to have the follow-up meetings and all that. And the reason why it fits here now is because the juvenile court was also a county project. So when 5 Mile Prairie went so well, the county commissioners, there were 3 of them, hired me to do the work on the juvenile court.
Mm-hmm. And that project was about creating a new juvenile court?
Oh, yeah, even the building.
So that building that's downtown that has the 4 pillars around each side was created out of the project that you helped them create?
Yeah, unless they build a new one since I knew anything about it. Yes. Uh-huh. It was a wonderful project. We had citizens involved. I'm trying to remember the name of the wonderful director. Oh, darn it. He was beautiful.
It'll come to me about midnight.
Yeah. Anyway, I had several managers come to my Leos workshops, and they were really they really loved the work that I was doing with them. And in fact, a couple became part of the graduate program. Anyway, and I may be wrong but they did a lot of training with me. So Bill, that was the first name. The manager wanted me to be the consultant on the project. Well, people challenged that because I wasn't an architect or anything. Why would I be the one? It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the reason I was the one was because I knew how to bring together people with different levels and kinds of knowledge to do a problem-solving process. Then at that point, the process would go to the county commissioners, the 3 of them. And that was always considered to be a very difficult problem because, they're elected, it's politics. So a part of it was my building a strategy to how do we keep the county commissioners informed. Well, for one thing, the county commissioners weren't supposed to know anything about the project till it was all over. In other words, we were supposed to spend 6 months there and then go in and give them the report, and they were supposed to vote on it. It was the stupidest process. So what I got was people who knew county commissioners. One person was the head of the YWCA, she was a remarkable woman, just remarkable. She and I had worked on, that reminds me, RETAP, which I developed, called Reduced Teenage Pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we brought together people from different counties, but that's another story. But in the meantime, she joined, and she was a very good friend of one of the commissioners who was very influential, if not the most, of the three commissioners.
Uh-huh.
And she just would drop in and see him, talk about the project all the time. And we did knowledge retrieval like it's never been done before in the history of the world or the universe. No kidding. We're building a juvenile court. I say to the architects, do you know where they have the best entry of a court? Oh, yeah, in Nebraska. Okay, we need 3 people who will go to Nebraska, take videos, interview people, come back and retrieve knowledge for this group. By that time, I taught them what that was. And so for each kind of thing, like the kind of housing that the children would live in, the kind of care they would have, I don't care what it was. We had people go to 5 or 6 cities to retrieve knowledge from what were considered to be the best juvenile detention facilities and programs in the nation.
Yeah.
And they came back, and I would always meet with them and train them.
Yeah.
And the minute they said, now, okay, I'd say, give me the report. Well, the one would start and say, well, what you people should do, stop, no shoulds. You're telling them what they do there. You're not telling them what they should do.
Yeah.
And so I trained them. And then by the time they presented to the only 30 or 40 citizens, they had that skill down. And it turned out to be a marvelous project. And when it was presented to the commissioners, they voted on it 3-0 to pass it, just like that.
Was that rare that the commissioners would vote 3-0?
They often turned it down. Other people would have records of that. I don't. But that was the story. The story was they were really tough.
Uh-huh.
Wonder they turned it down. Somebody works on something from 6 months ago in with a report, and they read a report. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
You expect them just
so you changed the process there by having people, informal influencers, keep them up to speed along the way, and you did a bunch of knowledge retrieval with the citizens.
You could ask Mark Richards how much I changed anything, but at least for that time, I did. Yeah. Mark was later commissioner and a friend of ours.
County commissioner, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, Mark was 18 when you were doing this work, so
yeah.
So, but yeah. Anyways, okay. So you've talked about HUD, you've talked about the juvenile court, you've talked about the 5 Mile Prairie. You talked a little bit about the crisis clinic. Is there anything else you want to talk about, like the park project? Is there anything else you want to talk about? I don't know about the United Methodist thing.
Oh, the park project.
Yeah, we're talking about that here at the OD conference. You're talking about it at the OD conference with Gil.
Well, that was a huge one. It was huge, not because the amount of people. Rick Bonino, the great Spokesman Review writer, really great. Rick said there were 70 people at the first meeting. I don't recall that at all, but it was, they just showed up, and I had to help them develop a structure. And first of all, though, I had to make sure that the park board, which reported to the city council, but I was hired by the park board. I was hired because a lot of liberals, using the political definition for a liberal, someone who, would be for civil rights and for likely a Democrat, for what we think of when we think of a liberal, rather than the dictionary definition of a liberal, which is a liberal is someone who is open-minded, as contrasted to a conservative who leans heavily on tradition and conservative tradition, like the Declaration of Independence. In other words, they're not good or bad positions. They just are. There are different ways of looking at even life. The liberals more apt to be spontaneous and expressive and try new things and question old things. The conservatives more apt to question new things.
We've always done it that way.
Yeah, we've always done it that way, but with a positive swing on it here. I don't want to have anything appear negative about being conservative, because we have a lot of conservative values in our culture that need to be preserved and honored. But I was definitely a political liberal, and so the political liberals wanted me to be the consultant, but for the wrong reasons, I learned later, because some of them thought that I would just push their point of view, which was the total greening of the park, even in the extreme, taking down the tent that's there. It would be a greening of the park, even though some of them wanted to keep the pavilion up. But nevertheless, that was the liberal side, the political liberal side. Now, my job, I conceived as being hired by the Parks Department and to work with them to come up with what citizens might prefer. The people who came to the meetings thought that my job was to support them, was to give them advice, which of course I didn't think that at all. I thought my advice should be given to the people that hired me. And furthermore, that how do you give advice to 70 people? I mean, they have to be organized. Who do you talk to? I mean, so from the get-go, we had authority issues. They would say to me, "You're betraying us." And what they meant by that was I wasn't supporting the total greening of the park or something close to that.
Yeah. And so how long did it take to develop these 6 options?
I think there were 5. Why do you say 6?
I 5 options is fine. The several different options that you developed.
5.
Yeah. Well, we started, I'd have to check out dates on this, on some of those articles.
And then is it right you developed these options and then you showed them to citizens in little sort of town halls, and then they voted on what they preferred?
Not little town halls, but what happened was I had proposed that we develop a slide set, which we did, and the architectural firms provided artists from their firms, so that we had 5 different presentations. I need to back up in a minute and tell you how we got the 5. But the 5 presentations were then I had hoped to get 400 groups that would watch the slides and vote. Not, of course, a non-binding vote.
Right.
A vote that would then go to the park board. Now, the thing is, I don't know how many we got. We got a lot. I mean, 200-300. I don't know, maybe 400. I don't even know, because we had school groups, college groups, high school groups. We had church groups, adult study groups. We had Rotary clubs, Lions clubs, etc., and who would devote a session watching the slides, and then casting their votes, their non-binding votes, and sending them to us. Well, that was my way of making it a citizen program. I mean, it was, I couldn't get that many people to show up for a meeting. Where would we put them anyway?
Sort of like you went to them, you went to a bunch of different places, or
yes, through the slide sets.
yeah, through the slide sets. Yeah.
And we had overwhelmingly, we had support for developing the corridor, which used to be that street that goes right through went right through where the park is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically what exists today. So that was the overwhelmingly non-binding vote that we took to the park board. Rick Bonino has chronicled a lot of this, and that one article I mentioned it. It's easy to identify because it has my picture on it. That's not why well, maybe it is. It's a good picture. Anyway, no, it's a great article about what we were doing, various projects. And it's a good article about this one that he wrote and published right before we started in 1984, 10 years after the expo, to develop the plans for next steps for the city park.
So the park board got the non-binding votes and decided, or did it go then to the whole city to do an official vote on it, or?
No, it didn't go to the whole city.
So the park board got the non-binding votes and went for the overwhelming favorite.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And the park to this day looks very similar to the favorite. Fair statement?
I think that is. Son Gil was with me. He was young, just a kid. But he sat at the back and watched me get get all kinds of conflict thrown my way because the political liberals believed I had betrayed them.
Right. So that the conflict was that you weren't doing what they wanted. What you were doing was being the neutral person that you were hired to be and making sure the citizens got to choose, not one of the people that was coming up with one of the ideas.
Exactly.
Cool.
I didn't mention how we got the 5 groups. When the 70 arrived, there weren't groups, except it was sort of obvious, but they didn't come as groups. There were certainly quite a few of them interested in the greening of the park or something close to that. There were several who were interested in developing the corridor or something close to that. There were some that were interested in keeping the pavilion as it is and making everything else green. In other words, as I began to see, I could identify 4 groups in the room. And so I said, I think we need to work in groups because, I didn't get any pushback on that. There were, and then another group, and I think his name was Dan Baumgartner. It's in the article. Incidentally, these were front page articles. These were very conflictual.
Yeah.
And it was news in the city.
Yeah.
But the 5th group was started, but it didn't really fit because it was how we would, what the programs would be at the park, not how the park was developed. That didn't matter. So, and the way I thought of that was that if it scores a lot, then that'll influence programs, but it won't influence how the park's built because any of the others could score a lot, and still the programming ones score a lot too. So we had these 5 go all through the city, and it was it was a great project. It really was. But boy, did I take a lot of crap from the liberals, political liberals.
You were a good target.
I was a good target, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's about an hour, Papa.
Well, that's fine. Do you have anything else, though, that you want to cover while we're at it?
I think you've. I mean, I really was looking for the HUD, the juvenile courts, and the 5 Mile Prairie. Those 4 things. So I think I got covered what I wanted to.
And my chapter on managing conflict in large group meetings, which could have been named better, it is really mostly about the HUD project.
Yeah.
In the memoirs, in my
memoirs of a change agent.
Yeah. And remember, I know I sell it, and I like to sell it. It's nice, but on Amazon. But nevertheless, I do also make it available free electronically to anyone that asks me for it.
Yeah.
Gives me their email. Well, thanks, Chris. This kind of work is I actually was then named by a national group to develop criteria for doing the kind of work I do in citizen development. But it happened before that national group had a breakup. And so what I developed with my committee never really flew, and I don't know where it is anymore.
Yeah.
But
well, it reminds me of the work that Carol Lucasmeyer did for citizen engagement activities. She had larger groups, but I have she presented to Leo's, and but it's the same basic stuff. As she only worked with leaders that actually took seriously what she was going to do, and then she was doing more political things. So one thing that she did, which I think is needed today, is there has to be data that both sides agree on to people can use to work the whatever issue that she was trying to solve. But that's a little different than what you were doing here. What you were doing here was just citizen stuff on developing things that people already decided to do. So
I also want to refer anyone who might be looking at this, if you choose to go that direction, to my, I think it's chapter 12 in my memoirs, Student Influence Without Anarchy. Warren Bennis, a great name in this field. He was president of the University of Cincinnati. He loved that article and had it printed in his university journal. And anyone that reads it will see that it's organization development as I knew it, trained by the people who developed it years ago, and it's applied to a university.
right.
I worked with hundreds, 500 or 600 students and faculty at Gonzaga, and I had a leaflet, a booklet that guided all 600 of them. Not a leader. A leader would help them turn the pages. But then we came to a final meeting with 60 recommendations of 1 minute in length. It was a great project, and it's in the memoirs.
That's cool. Even to this day, there's plenty of university unrest that is mostly loosely structured at best. And so you helped Gonzaga University back then let their students be part of making changes that they thought were important, and sort of avoided some campus unrest, in a sense. Good for you. Well, thanks for your remarkable career, Papa. You've done a lot of good work.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about the Eastern work, and that was with schizophrenics, but that was enabling them through T group, work, to be prepared to leave the hospital and go back into the community. And I worked with, I forget how many, it was 8 or 12. I think it was 12, but it might have been 8. But we were successful. They went back and they successfully went back to living in the community.
Yes.
No, and they didn't rebound.
That's right.
That's incredible. And how long did you do T group work with them?
Well, we did a month-long one. And what we did with it, we did a leaderless one. That is, we would set up the T group, then leave the room, and then come back and have them debrief it. So in a way, the T group continued. And but we did that for a month, where they were in there without any one of us. I modeled it after what was done in Texas at, what was the name of that? I learned that from somebody else, but
With schizophrenics, was it more important to have that space to not have somebody telling them what to do or correcting them? Is that why you didn't have leaders in the room?
Well, it seemed to work in his hospital in Texas.
Yeah.
That's what did it. And I can't say that I was that knowledgeable about what you just asked.
Yeah.
But the one thing we did do, however, though, is we created an environment. That is, for instance, we said that in order to do this, they had to live in the same area. They had to eat their meals together. They had to learn to self-medicate all during the month. So it was more than just the leadership training.
Right. You're preparing them to take care of themselves out in the real world.
That's right.
Cool. Well, thank you, Papa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And once again, I'll say great work you've done. Sort of amazing, really. As well as I can say you're a good mentor, because I have some knowledge of that. Okay. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
Hey, I appreciate you listening. This, again, is Gil Crosby. And I want you to take advantage of what's available to you. I have many free materials. I am happy to talk to people about their situations, especially if you're trying to create change, either social change or organization change. We have frequent workshops that are available, T group workshops. If you have never been in a T group with us, then don't miss it in your life. Many people have said to me, of all the trainings I've ever received, I got this one 30 years ago, and it's the only one that stuck with me. You're learning from your actual interactions with the other participants and with the faculty. The faculty are walking the same talk that they're teaching of behavioral skills. It's a training workshop. That's what the T stands for. This is done in the spirit of the creation of T groups by Kurt Lewin and his associates. It's for groups. It's for teams. That's how it was originally designed. It is a opportunity to learn about theory and put it directly into practice. Again, the original design, you learn things and then you put them into practice. It was not just all ambiguity, which is how some T groups, most are led today, where the faculty hardly says anything. That's not how this is designed. So join us for that. There's always workshops. There's the Leadership Institute of Seattle, a 2-year program where you will learn from T groups and learn how to do all the organization development work that my father designed, most of it, and I continue that practice alongside my brother Chris and many other associates. So don't be a stranger. There's a lot going on. It's always changing. So be in touch, and it's on the website, crosbyod.com. I look forward to working with you in your organization or as you pursue things like reducing gun violence and decreasing racism in our society. Whatever your goals are, the social science of Kurt Lewin guides how to achieve those goals in a reliable way. And so that's what I apply and practice every day. And I invite you to do the same. Together, we can create high productivity and morale in organizations. We can create stronger foundations for democracy. We can create a better world.